Destination Nightmare, the B-Movie Podcast.
All right, The House That Screamed.
Yes.
Quite a strange little movie. It had that EC ending, though, which is always cool, which is
kind of what the whole movie was building up towards.
Yeah, it really was, you know. It's like, you know, the ultimate... It's another... I don't know if you'd call it Oedipal movie, but... Because that other one we did, Scream Bloody Murder, was very much so, but... You know, definitely mom and son had a strong relationship there.
Little too strong.
Little too strong, and... yeah, this Destination Nightmare B-Movie Podcast. I'm Al. You're R.
And I'm Roddy.
And, yeah, this movie's from '69, The House That Screamed, or La Residencia. Like an idiot, I was looking for a good copy of it, and I couldn't find, and the Blu-ray was going for like, you know, a ton of money. So I said, well, let me see if I can find one. And I mean, it's online, but it wasn't that great. And my Elvira DVD's in storage, which probably wasn't that great either. So I just bought one, Sinister Cinema. And it turns out that his copy is the same one you find online. It wasn't The House That Screamed. It was La Residencia. And it didn't look that great, but it was okay. So I'm like, damn. And so then my friend the other day gives me a Blu-ray player. And he goes, hey, man, this isn't working. I'm getting a new one. So he gives it to me, and the damn thing works. I don't know. I think he's having problems with it, but it seems to work fine. But he got a new one anyway, a better one. So thank you, CK, for that. And I go, well, let me look through my Blu-rays, because I got to play Blu-rays. I only have 5 Blu-rays, so I picked up A Nightmare Castle. And I go, oh, yeah, I watched it, and another movie on there. And then I'm looking through them, and guess what I had in my Blu-ray section?
The House That Screamed.
Exactly. So I went and spent $10 buying a crappy copy of it, and I had a perfect Blu-ray of it, and I had it in the original version that I saw it as. So I'm like, it was right there. So I'm like, okay, great. So anyway, so yeah, I watched it again, and yeah, this movie it's interesting. This movie was told to me by when I was a kid. We had these friends of ours, and one of their cousins had left Cuba and went to Spain, and then from Spain he came to the U.S., and he was a couple years older than me, but he was a cool guy. So we were talking about movies one day, and he goes, oh, I saw this movie called La Residencia, and it was a big hit in Spain, and it was about what we're going to talk about. And I was like, oh, that's cool, man. He goes, yeah, it's like it was like people were all all around the corner to want to watch it or whatever. I go, oh, cool. So then one day I see on TV a promo for some movie, The House That Screamed, and if the promo just reminded me of what he was talking about, and it just happened that it was playing at the theater that was a block away from my house, so I said, okay. So basically I walked to see it, and there it was, the same movie he talked about, same ending, same storyline. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I saw it. I told him about it, and he goes, and he didn't go see it because he's already seen it already in English, but it was funny that he mentions it to me, and within like, I don't know, maybe a year, it's playing in my neighborhood. So cool. Yeah. So I have I have fond remembrances of this movie. I liked the movie. I thought it was well done. I mean, it's pretty basic. It's just set in a boarding house, and I didn't realize that even though Dario Argento doesn't admit it, people say this movie influenced Suspiria, because Suspiria is also a movie set in a girls' school, but it's ballet school as opposed to like a school for.
It's like a boarding
school, yeah, for crazy girls, basically. There's a whole lot of crazy going on in this movie.
Yeah, and a lot of S&M and
repressed sexuality. Lesbianism repressed. And you know what? It doesn't seem far-fetched to me. I could see that if you're in a
Yeah.
school with a bunch of girls and you're treated like, like they were treated there, that, something was going to happen. It's kind of like, turn of the century. I mean, shoot, I'd always tell the story when it was my first day of school. My parents let me there, and I had never been separated from them, and I'd never been to kindergarten, and I was crying and crying and crying, and instead of the nun consoling me, she smacked me over the head with a ruler. So corporal punishment, kind of like what they do in this movie, but in a little bit more severe.
A little bit more, yeah. Yeah, the nuns, because I went to a Catholic school, and the nuns weren't very tender.
No.
Like one nun had this bat, looked like a cricket bat, and it had holes drilled in it, and it said Board of Education.
Yeah, right.
And if you got out of hand, you got whacked with it.
Yeah, when I was in high school, we had a teacher who was not a religious guy. He was just a teacher there. And he had two paddles, but it was kind of like a goofy things. He called one of them Raquel Welts, and the other one was called Jane Market. And within the span of the whole year, everybody got spanked. But I think but to me, that's kind of, in retrospect, it's kind of strange that this guy who was he was an army guy, wanted the whole class got paddled for missing an assignment. It was kind of, I don't know. And in retrospect, I look at a lot of the stuff that went down in high school with these teachers, and some of them were kind of odd. So that's why I don't. I believe what happened in this movie, because some teachers or some school situations are very squirrely and strange or whatever. But at any rate, so this movie stars Lilli Palmer, who did a lot of movies. I didn't realize she did so many movies. And John Moulder-Brown, the main guy who kind of specialized in creepy guys. He did another movie called, what was it? He did another movie called with Jane Asher in it called oh God, I can't remember the title of it. But throughout the whole movie, he walked around with a cardboard cutout of her.
Oh God!
It was another strange movie about obsession and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
he's got this very weirdly effeminate, blank look to his face. He looks almost like a mannequin that came to life.
He reminds me of early Bowie before he became, the Ziggy Stardust or whatever, when he was David Jones or whatever. But he did children's movies. He did these, and he did the. Oh God, it's killing me, man. What is the movie? I was thinking about it a second ago. It was called. Anyway, it's been on. I'll remember before the show's over, But yeah, he had that weird look in it, like his eyes were a little bit out of. They weren't aligned properly, but he had this really schoolboy angelic face or whatever, and yeah. So this movie's about I think it starts off with a girl who's being brought to the boarding school, and and she's the new student, and Lilli Palmer's the headmaster there, and her dad drops her off, and she meets everybody, and then little by little she starts finding out what a creepy place this is.
I think there was a scene before she gets there where a student, they're writing as the Lilli Palmer is dictating.
Yeah.
Some girl refuses to write, so they take her to the punishment room where they strip her and whip her with a whip. Yeah,
that was a little severe, but the girl was kind of called her Lilli Palmer a bitch, I think, or something. So.
And the head girl who had the keys, she really got into whipping the other girl. So.
Yeah. It's you got all the girls. You got the new girl that they're meeting. You've got Lilli Palmer, who's the headmaster. You've got a creepy caretaker, Victor Israel, who's kind of like a red herring, sort of. John Moulder-Brown is a son who's a ultimate mommy's boy.
Yeah.
then you got all these girls who are all different kind of personalities. Some are kind of like, more repressed than others, I guess.
Yeah, they're goofy and silly, and others are like really, yeah, repressed and angry or frustrated or something.
And you got all the workers there look like they're like old maids or whatever, with the buns and stuff. Lilli Palmer looks like she's like ready. She was like Ilsa She-Wolf or something like that, the SS or whatever. She's very
very weird, almost concentration camp kind of.
Yeah, she's got that face that's like that nasty hard face or whatever, which is perfect for this movie or whatever, but she was doing movies in the 30s, Lilli Palmer.
Yeah.
German actress.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of like, I'm watching the scene now where they're all in the dining room, and the head girl is like looking at the new girl, and she's like kind of looking at her kind of in a sleazy way, eating some fruit or whatever, and you're like, wow, that's subtle. Total movie about repressed sexuality.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about Spain, which I know little of, but apparently during this era, Franco, the dictator, whatever he was, it was a very Catholic, very repressed society. You couldn't show much nudity, so I guess these movies are a reflection of being anti, the censorship or the, because even like some movies made in the early '70s that Lasci did and others, you would have the Spanish version, and then when you saw the version sent to U.S. and everywhere else, it was like nudity and all sorts of like stuff. But the Spanish one was very tame. It was gory, maybe, or gory sort of, but all the other stuff was like taken out or whatever. We talked about it before because other countries are more lenient than Spain was. Italy, France, Germany, they were like, yeah, whatever you want to show, we'll do it or whatever, so.
A bit more
Catholic
than even like stuff sent to America. Like some stuff that would that would be okayed in America would be still considered kind of shocking in Spain.
This was edited apparently from like some gore, but this was a GP movie. I got in with no parents. I just walked in and saw it. It was GP, and it's not gory. And in the shower scenes, the girls are covered, but that kind of makes it even, a little more, kinky or whatever. Oh, by the way, that John Moulder-Brown movie with Jane Asher is called Deep End. I kept thinking Deep Thrust or something. It's called Deep End. It's a weird movie. It shows up on TCM occasionally, on TCM Underground. It's a weird movie.
Yeah.
And Jane Asher, who's the lead, was Paul McCartney's girlfriend in the early days before he married, Linda Eastman or whatever her name was. So that was his original girlfriend. She was in. I don't know if we did Mask of the Red Death on this show, the Poe movie. But she was in that movie, and she was a television actress, and she was also the sister of Peter Asher, who is the pop singer for Peter and Gordon, who had a few hits. And basically McCartney was before he got all the money in the early days, when the Beatles were starting to hit, he was living in Peter Asher and Jane Asher's house, just to get away from people. And in that house he wrote stuff like Yesterday and all sorts of heavy duty songs. Peter Asher now is touring like as a kind of like he talks and then he plays music. My friend just saw him. I think he was supposed to play here, but they canceled due to COVID, and he ended up playing in Orlando, I think, or something like that. So yeah, so Deep End, that's the other weirdo movie from, and a lot of these movies in the 70s, and even though this is 69, it's close enough, they're very sexually repressed, or it was almost like they were really trying to break through, from the conservatism of what was before,
60s and 60s. In the 70s, I mean, like, you had, was it the Era of Love or the Year of Love, or whatever, was it 69?
Yeah. Flower power, love,
A lot of that stuff really started to take hold and then slowly spread to the main. And because this wasn't really geared towards the people who were like hippies, but to like regular people who by then, things were changing and challenging. And so little of that, fighting repression was kind of a popular thing.
Yeah, definitely. And again, this is a movie from Spain, so over there it was like real repressed. So, and after Franco died, it all changed. Then like the floodgates opened, and they started doing everything and they could or whatever. But in this era, this was a little more
repressed,
challenging to do a movie like this. The director Narciso, I can't remember his name. He has a weird name, Serrador, I think was his last name. He did another weird movie that I'll have to find it. It's real weird. It's called Who Can Kill a Child, and it was about these people that go on an island, and it's almost like The Birds in a way, because they go on this island, and then these kids start killing them. It's a strange movie. It's called Who Can Kill a Child, and then after a while, after the visitors on the island are getting killed, then the visitors have to start killing the kids. It's a real bizarre movie, man. This guy definitely had he had some interesting. They would call him the Spanish Hitchcock. Now, those are the only two movies of his that I know. Yeah. He may have done more. I think he did a few movies and then he went back to being a journalist or something. But those two movies are definitely like, Yeah, I'm watching the scene now where the girls are like saying their prayers and the heavy duty girl is whipping the other girl, at the beginning of the movie. I remember all that, and she's enjoying the hell out of it too. Let me tell you. Yeah, because it's like, it's like at the beginning of it, they're like in some classroom or whatever, and that one girl she's after the original girl gets in and she's in the school and they meet her and they wear her clothes or whatever. There's like a scene in like what is it, the dining room or something, and she talks back to Lilli Palmer, and then like Lilli Palmer sends her to the way into the room, and then and then like the girl kind of like I said before, she calls her a bitch because I think she's like pretty crazy. I mean, she's like, there was another scene where, let's put it that way, where she's kind of enjoying Lilli Palmer watching her in the shower. You know what I mean? So she was kind of like F you to,
Yeah, everybody was showering with this, I don't know, cotton garment. It looked like almost like a nightshirt.
Yeah.
And then she like rips it off and standing there naked, and she's like, and Lilli Palmer's like, what are you doing? Says, I don't want to wash with that. I want to wash my body. Does that bother you? And she's like, you see her from behind, and she's, swaying her shoulders at her, like taunting her. And Lilli Palmer's like, no. And you get a weird vibe from Lilli Palmer, too.
Oh, yeah.
Is she really repressed herself? She must be.
She's I guess you would call her like a ball buster maybe or whatever, you know what I mean? Because then along the way you meet her son and you find out that like her son is having like little rendezvous with the girls. You know?
And he's always spying on them. And in fact, when a new girl comes in, you see like a figure move by or like a hand in the window, and she's like, and you don't know what's going on. And it turns out it's the son who's always spying around, and the mother's freaking out and yelling at him. And it's like, these girls are no good for you. You need someone like me when I was younger, someone who will love you and who's they're not good enough for you. You need to find someone. It's the old mother that like frowns on any girlfriend you have because they're no good or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, so you meet him, and then you hear about in the beginning about how like some girls have gone missing. Yeah, they've escaped.
There's 4,
I think 3 or 4 girls And then
the one girl who he's having a relationship with, he leaves a key for her in her bed.
Right.
And she goes to meet him.
She goes to meet him. She goes down into some greenhouse where they learn how to plant.
Yeah.
And gardens and stuff. And she's looking for him. And suddenly this figure comes up, and you see this weirdly filmed scene where the girl gets stabbed. You see, like a knife going up and down, and her face all distorted and everything. And then the next day, they notice that she's missing, and they assume she escaped. And we know she escaped.
Well, we know, but at this point we don't know, because after the girl gets killed, then we figure out, well, these girls probably didn't escape. They're probably being killed by somebody.
Oh, and there's a couple of scenes where you see Lilli Palmer like opening a letter, and she's got a really wicked-looking letter opener. So you're like, is Lilli Palmer the one killing these girls?
Yeah, you don't know. It could be anybody, Yeah. It could be the headmaster girl who likes to whip.
Yeah.
Because she's obviously likes girls a lot,
There's one scene. There's also a scene where the weirdo caretaker's got the one eye looking off.
Yeah, Victor Israel. He's in a lot of Spanish horror movies.
Like looking in the windows at the girls, and they're all like freaking out. So the head girl takes an interest in the new girl, Teresa. Yeah. So they sort of her down into the cellar somewhere where there's like a secret room, and they do a secret knock, and door opens, and one of the other girls who's friends with the head girl, you see her sort of like dressing herself. And then, they go in the room, and it's got some nice furniture and weird drawings of women, naked women, and you get this weird feeling that,
It's Creepsville completely.
Yeah, it's like a lesbian hangout or whatever, and they find out that Teresa's mother is a prostitute, so they get her to sing, and they torment her, and she's crying, and so then somewhere along the line, she meets the son. The Teresa girl meets the son, and they start like a friendship.
Yeah, but before that, when the girl at the beginning gets killed, then you see scenes of like the son where he goes into this little
the little air duct
to watch the girls taking showers. And then he gets locked in there by the caretaker. So he's banging with his foot, and then finally that girl, Teresa, is the one that lets him out.
Yeah.
So that's where they become their friendship or whatever,
So when Lily gets tormented and whatever, so she decides to leave.
And wait, let me go back. And there was another scene which is really interesting in this movie, important. And, again, the whole concept of this movie was when these girls are all taking all these classes, and like you said, they're doing drawings of like naked women and stuff like that. It's really weird, but then they're always sitting around sewing or whatever, and then they go, oh, the caretaker, the lumber guy's coming.
That's right, the wood guy, who delivers the wood.
Yeah, he's delivering the wood, all right.
The head girl determines who can go and see him, because apparently when they go, they have it out with, they have sex with the wood guy.
And then you see all the girls sitting there like listening or whatever, and they're all like, like sweating and stuff. There's a lot of this stuff going on in this movie.
With sewing, they did sort of a visual hint of sex. You could hear the girl moaning and stuff, and then they're sewing and getting sticking thread and needle.
Yeah, right.
And then finally, just as the girl climaxes, somebody pricks her finger and bleeds. And, that's it for today. So not only did they finish sewing, but the girl and the guy in the woodshed finished what they were doing. And
apparently, this is a monthly thing. Whenever he comes by, the girls take turns or whatever. I'm like, whoa.
Very strange. A lot of weird scenes like that showing repression, and the girls don't get enough to eat, and they have to, whenever Lilli Palmer tells them to do something, they will have to do it robotically. they all go to bed at the same time, which is, I don't know, like 6 or 8 o'clock or something weird.
Yeah.
And early. So the Teresa tries to escape.
And the other girl sees her.
Yeah, the other girl sees her and follows her and is waiting for her to come out to, I guess, stop her.
We're going later in the movie right now.
Yeah. And the other girl, Teresa, is trying to get out, and so she's trying to open a window, and she hears a door creaking open. She looks, she doesn't see anybody, so she thinks it was just the wind or whatever. So then she tries to open the window more, and then you like a figure comes from behind her and cuts her throat with a knife, and
then she disappears too.
Yeah, she disappears. And the other girl, the head girl, she looks and she's figuring like, well, why didn't the girl come out? So she goes and she looks, she sees the window, she sees like wet footsteps, and she knows the girl disappeared, and
she starts threatening Lilli Palmer.
And to blackmail her, and then Lilli Palmer, like she has a set of keys. The head girl has a set of keys that Lilli Palmer gave her. So she's blackmailing Lilli Palmer. She's saying, "I'm going to leave," and Lilli Palmer is like, "No, you're not." "Yes, I am. If not, I'm going to tell people how what your weird disciplinary."
Yeah, all the S&M stuff or whatever.
He's like, "Well, this is how all boarding schools do." And she says, "Oh, really?" So Lilli Palmer gets a little nervous, takes the keys back from her, and so then the girl, you see several scenes where Lilli Palmer being real harsh, and she's going to say something, and the head girl looks at her, and she gets all kind of. Lilli Palmer gets flustered and decides, not to get really harsh with the person who's not writing.
I think the head girl is. I think the actress name is Mary Maude, but but she's real. She kind of looks like Teresa a little bit, so I was getting a little confused. They have the same look or whatever,
Yeah. So, so you see them in the kitchen. They're in the kitchen with the cook who's showing them how to make a pie. So then she, checks the open window that, she can open the window from the kitchen because she's going to escape that night. And she meets a friend. And they destroyed all the evidence in their secret lesbian lair. And, her bags are packed. So she's getting ready to leave. So I think somewhere in there's another scene where the mother's talking. There's several scenes, but she's talking to the son. "Oh, you're too sick to go to school with other boys, and there'll come a time when you can have a nice girl, but these girls aren't worth it. They're worthless." And
she gives him a big kiss on the mouth at one point.
It's all creepy.
Totally creepy.
Holding him, and he's all like got this sort of blank. Because he's very pretty.
He's very feminine looking.
Yeah, he's got these sort of full lips and this unblemished face and this like blank stare, and so you get this. It's like this weird, really close relationship with the mom. So it's nighttime, and the girl's going to escape, and they're all in bed. And Lilli Palmer says, "Bring me the head girl, Mary Maude. I want to talk to her." So the housekeeper goes up and wakes her up and says, "Lilli Palmer wants to talk to you." So she gets dressed and she goes to leave. And they're always locking doors. Lilli Palmer has this thing about locking doors and making sure everybody stays in their room, or they're, very rigidly controlled. So she goes downstairs to go to talk to Lilli Palmer, and the doors open a crack, and she sees Lilli Palmer, and then Lilli Palmer has a big letter opener, and it looks, like very lethal when she's opening letters and stuff. So she decides, "Yeah, I'm out of here." So she starts running around trying to open doors, and and escape, and she can't get to anything. So then Lilli Palmer hears her, because she's expecting the girl. So she gets up and she starts walking around looking for her and following the noise of the girl trying to get out. Well, the girl slowly makes her way upstairs up to the attic, and Lilli Palmer is looking for her, and she hears some noises in the attic. So she goes up, and she's got a candelabra with lit candles, and she sees the girl laying down in the corner, and she's like, "Oh, there you are. What are you doing up here? What's going on?" And then she goes she pulls the girl towards her, and she sees that like the side of her head is crushed in and there's blood everywhere. And she's like, "Oh, you poor girl, what happened to you?" And then she lifts up her hand, and she's got her hands cut off. Or she lifts up the girl's arms.
It's like a stump.
And the hand, she's just got stumped. She's like, and then she hears a noise coming from another part of the attic. So she goes in, and she opens the door, and her son's there, and he's, got this figure lying on a bench or something. It's covered with a cloth, and he's like, "Oh, hi, Mommy. I'm so glad you're here. I was just gonna call you. My perfect woman is complete."
She was just missing her hands, and she has strong hands just like you now.
And Teresa had eyes just like you, so I gave her Teresa's eyes. And Lilli Palmer's like, What are you talking about?" And, "Oh, this is her. This is the perfect woman, Mommy." So he lifts the cloth, and you see like the shock of the corpse face of the dead girls. The
Yeah, he pieced them together, yeah.
Big shock scene, and then Lilli Palmer's screaming, "No, Louis, no." So then he locks her in the room and says, "Oh, teach her everything she needs to know, and get to know her, and talk to her, Mommy." And then you keep hearing Lilli Palmer screaming, and then he sits down, and he's got this really blank, sort of weird look on his face, and every time she screams, the camera zooms in closer on his face, till the very end.
Just like a freeze frame of him with a weird look on his face, and then the credits roll.
And it was a pretty good movie.
That ending is total like EC Comics,
Yeah, that sort of ending, because it didn't have to go that way. It could have been just somebody like just a crazy murderer, but they did that little twist at the end of the I don't know what you would call it, necrophilia.
Whatever it was. Yeah, he was definitely like he definitely was trying to build the perfect girl to please his mommy. So he did, sort of.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that guy Fernando was his name. I think he spilled the beans already, so I knew it was coming.
Oh,
what I mean? So it didn't catch me by surprise, but it's definitely like EC creepy comics, shock ending.
Yeah.
It could have been a really great half hour, episode, but it's fine as a movie. I mean, you get 45 minutes of repression and and about 45 minutes of a plot or whatever, but up at the beginning, it was interesting. It was just kind of like, it gave you a really creepy feel.
Yeah.
It was almost like voyeuristic in a way, but.
Yeah, and you sort of got to sort of peek into some weird, repressed school, and I mean, anybody who's been to Catholic school knows sort of weird repression you get from like the nuns I went to high school with Franciscan brothers, and they were a little more worldly, but you had a bunch of weirdo brothers too. There's one brother who taught math, and if you didn't get a good mark on the test, he would put you over his knee and spank you.
Are you kidding me?
Oh.
In high school?
High school. Yeah.
And you know what? My high school was also Franciscan brothers.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah,
well, I told you I had the English teacher who was not who was not religious, and for missing an assignment, he spanked everybody in the class or whatever one day, which I think is whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to say the word. You figure it out for yourself what you want to call that. But when the Franciscan brother does that,
yeah, it's weird.
It's a weird world we live in.
Yeah, yeah. So good Catholic horror movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. And this was, I mean, these girls weren't in a religious school, so.
No, they were. Well, back then, I think everything was more religious and, confined and stuff. So, but they did a lot of prayer and, yeah. I mean, I guess it's very telling that it came from Spain with all that weird religious repression all tied up into everything.
Yeah, everything in this movie was sexual.
Yeah.
Repressed sexual or S&M or whatever, or necrophilia or whatever, but it's not, it's rated GP or PG, so it was done skillfully, so it wasn't like overtly gross like it would be done a few years later, possibly, when the effects ruled. And this was done more in a, I don't know what we call it, tamer, but in a more subdued, more, I don't know what the writer is.
Hinted at stuff more than showed.
Except maybe for the whipping scene. That was pretty overt.
But it's weird. It's funny. In some cultures that are sexually repressed, violence is okay.
Sure.
So you could show someone, being shot 20 times or, being whipped. But if you show a nipple, forget it. and after the headmaster girl whipped the girl, didn't Lilli Palmer kiss her in the wounds or something like that? Being very gentle with her and almost lovingly
taking
care. Oh, and she sat there watching the whipping, almost
passively, kind of.
Yeah, like she was watching television almost, like an entertainment.
Or actually, the way I interpret it was she was enjoying it in a weird way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it was a show put on for her. It's like, yeah, this whole weirdly.
This whole movie's a whole lot effed up.
Yes.
If that's your thing, this is the movie for you. But it's kind of tame at the same time. Apparently, the uncut version has more graphic throat slashings or something, but probably cut out so it wouldn't get an R rating.
Yeah, the version I saw, I don't know if it was on television because, well, it had a lot of actual commercials, but there was some.
You saw it on Tubi?
No, I watched it on YouTube.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it had a lot of regular YouTube commercials, but there were sections where the screen would go black for a second, and then it was the next scene. So it was almost like it was edited for television. Right.
I mean, in all actuality, now going back in time, seeing more and more movies, not that they actually did this, but this kind of reminds me, and this is more explicit than they would ever do, but it reminds me of some TV movies in the 70s that dealt with weird subject matters like that,
Yeah, there was a time.
It wouldn't be as graphic. They would show throat slashings or hands cut off or whatever, but the repressed stuff, they wouldn't have been tamer, but they were doing stuff like this. It was I was talking to a friend of mine. It don't seem like a lot of these TV movies, which I didn't watch all of them when I was a kid, but I watched a few. But in retrospect, they're almost kind of like mini exploitation movies, but tamer. Yeah. Not all, but some of them.
Yeah, they were. They were on television, so they're going for a wider audience. And
but yeah, the stuff like. The Night Stalker and the Night Strangler, those are good horror movies. Salem's Lot was years later. You had this one which we'll watch one day called Pray for the Wildcats, which was a total insane movie with Andy Griffith, evil Andy Griffith, and
Yeah, I remember that. Evil Andy. I was surprised watching that because I always knew him from uh, Andy
Griffith
Griffith
Show. Andy of Mayberry, whatever the hell they called it.
Villain is like, whoa, what the?
He's a good villain.
Yeah, he was.
And there was one called Something Evil, which dealt with a possessed kid, and there's a couple of them with like Robert Conrad, where he captures nuns and holds them hostage. The Linda Blair one where she gets raped in girls' prison. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
On TV. There was one other one with her called Sarah T. Portrait of an Alcoholic Teenager or something. Yeah.
There was another one about a girl who she ran away from home and she got involved in drugs and
Portrait of a Runaway or something like that.
Yeah, something like. Yeah, there was a lot of weirdo stuff. Well, back then, the television was competing with the movies, so they tried to get as
much as they can, dealing with the topics.
Yeah. Tried to get as exploitive as they
could.
They
were pushing the limits of what they could get away with to compete with drive-ins and movie theaters, which were showing, The French Connection or Rosemary's Baby, or there's a lot of witchcraft movies in their early days too, like Crowhaven Farm and stuff like that, and they even did I think a TV movie called Whatever Happened to Rosemary's Baby or something like that. I'm sure I didn't see it, but I'm sure that title.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
A very weird witchcraft and crazy people and that was sort of the topic of the 70s were an odd time.
Yes, they sure were.
On the one hand, people were becoming more free sexually and emotionally and expressively, and a lot of barriers being broken down between races and sexes, and women burning their bras and various movements coming to the fore and people protesting, and at the same time it's like the more conservative people were pushing, and there was also a lot of odd films coming out towards the end of the 60s and 70s that did deal with, like, was it Ted and Alice and
Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice,
which dealt with
wife swapping or whatever it was.
Yeah, so it was a weird time, and that's when a lot of films, the villains became the heroes, like
anti-heroes. Yeah,
I can remember when Bonnie and Clyde came out. It was big. It was a big.
That was 60s.
Yeah, well, but that led into that. But that was a big hit.
The biker movies.
Yeah, the biker movies where the villain was the one we watched with Peter Fonda.
Yeah, the Wild Angels or something.
Wild Angels, and when did what's the one with him and Dennis Hopper?
Easy Rider.
When did that come out?
69.
69, yeah. So you had these weird anti-heroes who might have been good, might have been bad, and it was a very strange time.
Well, you had Dirty Harry, who was he was on the right side of the law, but he was breaking all the laws to get, at the end of the movie, he throws his badge in the river after he kills the Zodiac killer or whatever,
Yeah, there was a lot of, in fact, though, in the 70s and into the 80s, and even now, the guys who were on the right side of the law, they started breaking the law more and more, and so they would, to get the job done, they would.
Right. And there was a lot of downer endings too.
Oh God, yeah.
Even on the TV movies there were.
Yeah, and this one, the girl who's sort of the main star, Teresa, gets killed.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the ultimate downer movies. It's like, really, there's no. you know, and I guess it had something to do with the war, and you know, people were like, as a kid, I remember it as being a pretty much of a good time, except for you know going to school or whatever. You know, the comics were good. It was towards the end of the horror movie cycle where you still had Christopher Lee, Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, John Carradine doing stuff or whatever. You know, which would Star Wars would kill like by 1977 or whatever. You know, but you had like you know stuff like you're right, the anti-hero. You had like Death Race 2000, where like you get points for killing people, which was a parody. You know, hell, you had some horrid westerns. Like there was one called Soldier Blue, where at the end, like the cavalry just decimates an entire Indian village and they decapitate kids. I never saw it, but I heard about it. You saw it?
Yeah, I saw it in. But I'm watching this going, oh my God, this is a miserable movie. Nothing.
No redeeming.
Nah, nothing redeeming. I think the guy who made it was trying to make some kind of statement or something
about the treatment of the Indians. Yeah.
Which I mean, there were much more effective shows in the 50s and 60s that showed that than this. It was just a miserable movie. Yeah, you know, not all movie makers are great at what they do.
No, and then also, you know, besides the sex stuff, the violence started getting more graphic too. You know, the effects and all that stuff became more. You know, even in there's another movie which I never saw. My friend told me about. My parents wanted to see it, but I just said, nah, I'm not into it. It was called Old Zana's Raid, and it's like a western in it. And I think you get people getting like things cut off, like you know, castrated, and you know, it's in a western, really. You know, I mean, you know, it was a strange time in the cinema, but there was a lot of good things going on. But it was definitely like an end of an era. The music was good for a while there till the mid '70s, or you know, maybe after that a little bit, punk and stuff, but Prague, but. Yeah, and these movies were a reflection of
sort of grim.
You know, I mean, not to get political or anything, they were a reflection of maybe, you know, before this, maybe the movies were very conservative. It was almost like a crazy, over-the-top people with the freedom to do whatever they want. I don't want to call it liberalism, but, you know, something along those lines where it's like, okay, we're going to do whatever we want. We're going to break away from the morals of what would happen. We've got a movie code now that will protect kids from whatever, and you know, and you had Midnight Cowboy, which was an X-rated movie, which was won awards, you know, and also on a different subject, you also had, you know, the dirty movies going from softcore to hardcore porn or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and they were. I mean, I remember seeing them advertised in the newspaper suddenly, and it's like.
Yeah, the funny part about it. Yeah, the funny part about it was you'd go to the newspaper to see what was showing this week, and you'd have like a kids movie here, you'd have a parents movie here, and next to it at the Pussycat Theater, you know, Deep Throat.
And you see, Times Square up in this.
Oh God, yeah.
I never went to that back then.
No.
I think I drove once with my folks, and all sorts of weird. You go in, put a quarter in, and the thing comes up, and you see a naked girl dance, and there was strip clubs.
Oh yeah.
And it was a real sleazy, and some people, believe it or not, missed that.
Course.
They cleaned up Times Square because it had a character. It's like, ugh.
That's where they showed all these B movies. It would show them like, what was it? Weren't they open? The theaters were open all night, and people went in there to sleep that were homeless or whatever, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And then people got killed in those theaters too, you know.
Ugh.
Yeah, well, I remember when I lived in New York. I remember Times Square differently, but by the 70s it got real rough, you know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know it was very seedy and very sleazy, and then they cleaned it up, and I don't know what it's like now. You know, I think Giuliani cleaned it up or something. I don't know.
which everybody said was impossible. He cleaned it up, and then a lot of big corporations like the Disney Store moved in.
Yeah.
It became a tourist attraction, and now I think they made it into a pedestrian walk, and I'm not sure what's happened to it lately, but it's it's much different than it was.
Yeah, but I guess the B movie people regard it as like that's where everything was shown. You know, all the B movies, and then for suburban kids it would be the drive-in.
Yeah, the drive. There was always like a dollar theater. You could find some of these movies.
Yeah.
Or like a more sleazy, in more the sleazier neighborhoods, you could find these theaters that would play softcore, and then you'd have like a, like Flesh Gordon and
right. Groove Tube and stuff, yeah. And then also you had the midnight movies, which were showing the really weird avant-garde movies, on the weekends.
A lot of advertisements, midnight movies. The song remains. Was it the song remains?
The song remains the same. Yeah, Zeppelin. Yeah.
That was big and all over because we moved. I think when I was 12, we moved from. I moved from Brooklyn to Long Island, which is the suburbs, and that was playing big for as long as I can remember. And then suddenly it became Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was the big midnight movie that everybody flocked to.
Yep. And there was that one, and that became the ultimate one. But before that, it was like Pink Flamingos and stuff like that, And a lot of rock and roll movies like Jimmy Plays Berkeley and Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stones and all that stuff. They would show me. I went to them, not all of them, but I went to see. I saw Song Remains the Same, Jimmy Plays Berkeley, Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stone, and many others. But the House that Screamed, getting back to this movie, I saw like in the local suburban theater, which was lucky for me because back then. It was before a time where you had multiplexes. So a lot of times you'd look in the theater and you'd see like, oh, they're showing this movie that was in Famous Monsters, but it's showing only in downtown Miami. And as a 12-year-old kid, I'm not going to downtown Miami on my own. And my parents sure as hell ain't taking me there. There was only a few movies like this that I saw at the local theater before I had a car. There was this. And there was another movie called Frogs, which was one of the most disappointing.
Oh, got it with Ray Milland, yeah.
It's not a bad movie, but the promotion for it, which had a big frog eating somebody, was not in the movie. So.
No, but it was good. Yeah, you saw that, and you're like, oh. And then I saw that on television.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
Sam Elliott, Joan Van Ark, Ray Milland. It's all right.
Yeah, very disappointing.
I did see Tales from the Crypt at my local theater too. That was a good one too. The anthology movie. There was a few, but not many. Most of them played downtown. And then in my town later on, they opened up there was a dollar theater on the other side of town that would show double features, and it usually drive in. Then there was a town closer where I lived called the Colonial that started showing like, softcore and horror. So we had cars. And we would go there and see weird stuff. And it was movies. And then there was plenty of drive-ins too. Yeah. At least all over the place. There were in the 70s. All over the place there were drive-ins. So a lot of movies would only be showing at the drive-ins too. And the drive-ins was a place where you go and get drunk or have whatever. Get beer, get whatever, and then watch a movie or two and. Try to make it back home, So those were the days, but yeah, The House That Screamed. It's actually a well-made movie.
Yeah.
It looks really extravagant, but it's also kind of low budget because there's really not. It's just shot inside the house. It's claustrophobic, actually.
Yeah, well, I think that was done on purpose.
Yeah.
To make you feel the
creepy.
Impression and the creepiness. Yeah.
There was only a few exterior scenes, and they were few and far between. You know, it was mostly like just inside the house, and then the color of this film was very like warm colors, like browns and goldens and reds or whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting movie. It's worth checking out. There's a version of it on YouTube, but it's not that great. It's okay. You know, it's watchable. The Blu-ray is real nice. So, but if you go on Amazon, it's $60 now. So, that's not worth $60. It was worth what I paid for it, which was probably like 15 or 20 or something like that. But it's definitely worth checking out. And yeah, good movie. So
it had as I'm thinking about it, it had almost a Hammer feel, that sort of gothic.
Hammer feel, maybe Hitchcock too.
Hitchcock, but it just, I don't know, Hammer had some magic to it.
Yeah.
That some of these other films.
Well, there's no vampires or werewolves or anything.
Yeah.
There's no Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee or,
Yeah, they may have. Yeah.
So, anyway, there's plenty of stuff out there. And, but in the meantime, watch more B movie. Well, no, I shouldn't say, I did say, no, we have to say that the different way. In the meantime, between shows, while you're out there online, I got ahead of myself there. We think that you should watch
more
B movies. I got ahead of myself there for a second, but.
Time is running out for the people of the Asylum of the Insane. Asylum of the Insane, where madness is the norm. Filmed in Horoscope, see thrilling scenes in 3D. Three-dimensional terror jumps off the screen and into your lap. Obtain your free 3D blood shield glasses upon entering the theater. Rated GP, but not recommended for impressionable children. Asylum of the Insane, produced in Hollywood by maniacs.
It's so scary, we dare you to see The Monsters Crash the Pajama Party, the first movie ever filmed in Horror Vision, Hollywood's latest miracle. You'll scream as fiendish movie monsters actually become alive, then crash right out of the screen, go into the audience, and carry screaming girls from their seats right back into the picture to become part of the movie. We warn you, Horror Vision is not 3D. The movie monsters become real flesh and blood. Be sure to see The Monsters Crash the Pajama Party in Horror Vision and color.